Hi, Decoders. We're back. Do you know that feeling that sometimes feels like ick, but then the end result was super great? We've been deeply diving into the decoding of this, and today we're going to talk about solutions, support, how we hang in with that ick and get more information, and why the end result can be great.
Hi, I'm Kiran Trace. Welcome to Humans Decoded, a story of hobbits, fairies, elves, dwarfs, gnomes, and humans. If you get lost at any point, there is a deep dive on all the different avatars in episode 1. It includes notes. Thank you for joining us in a fun little chat about the vast potential of our human makeup.
Hi, Leela. Hi, Cami.
Hi.
Hi, Decoders. Hi, everyone. So, picking up where we left off last week. One of the long-form Kiran Trace semester classes we talk about risk and how to discern risk. Kiran has this traffic light system. If you want to do something that's very easy and you're like, yeah, let's go, let's go to the garden center and pick out new plants. It's green in the traffic light system because it's easy. It's like, cool, go. If you want to do something, but there's just complete terror at the door, like having a boundary with a family member, and it's just like, I think I might die, then it's red. And then there's that kind of sweet spot where it's risky, but you still want to do it. Like maybe you want to go to a new gym, but you're sort of intimidated by everyone there, but you still want to do it. It's risky, but like a yummy risky. That's a yellow. Or even one up from the yellow. A bigger risk that's hard not to get overwhelmed by is orange. And I remember one of the first times I really started to navigate orange. I was working as a camera assistant, as a focus puller. It's part of the camera team. And one of my friends that I worked for a lot was starting to get bigger gigs in London. So, those jobs had bigger crews, more budget, more gear. And up until that point, most of the work I'd done was based in Bristol. And, people here are friendly. I know everybody. It's like my playground. So London in comparison felt really intimidating. So leading up to these gigs in London, like the night before, I wouldn't get any sleep. I'd be up all night, have cold sweats. Like the days leading up to it, I'd be on the phone to my community buddies, like trying to breathe through all the fear. And I remember I finally made it to set. I met my new assistant and he was like, yeah, I just got off a massive feature film working with George Clooney. And I wanted to bolt out of that room screaming, I'm a fraud! I don't belong here! Almost like running straight through the wall, like leaving those cartoon silhouettes. But I stayed in. I knew the fear was not true. I knew the desire to level up, work with better crew, bigger budgets was more true. And so it was just a case of staying in. Like Kiran said, seeing that the package of fear or ick wasn't accurate information. It's actually very false. And it's just because you're about to traverse into something that's not known. But if you can stay in, usually there's a pretty sweet up level at the end. And nowadays, I'm happy to say I work in London all the time. Don't even bat an eyelid. Maybe sometimes I get a little bit nervous, but it was worth it. And it turns out, I do belong. It's fine in London.
I love that story, Cam. Even when you're working with George Clooney now, you're like, fine, you don't bat an eye. In our last episode, Decoders, just to recap, we are all very familiar with that ick or that yuck, like our skin's crawling. And in that episode, we realized it could be a traumatic response to something. We realized that it could be this overwhelm of our pain body. It could just be that we're getting invited into unknown territory. So everything's contracting and furling in. And I like what you just added to, Cam, intimidation. Intimidation really is a big factor. And I think especially in like places like what you're saying, like the career world, you can be intimidated and feel like it's just like yucky, I don't want that opportunity. We can really see it in romantic spaces where we're actually very intimidated by something. And I think this happens for men quite a bit. They can be intimidated by a woman and they just feel this like yuck, like nah, like not attracted at all. But it's really that yuck feeling is just an intimidation. So if the ick or the yuck isn't the whole story, and instead we have to hang out longer to get the real story, to get the information, how do we do that? We had this wonderful conversation last week, really about just learning how to stay in with the ick. Like that was the first step. Like, how do I stay in? And, you know, we talked about knowing just consciously that this isn't the information package can help a ton. Giving ourselves the opportunity to actually furl in on ourselves or collapse a little bit, but doing it consciously can really help. Basically, we're saying like a lot of acceptance for this overwhelming sensation can actually create some space for us. And then in order to tap into that information, we're going to have to get that in a couple of ways. And this is real practice. This is not something that you're going to nail right out of the gate. So there's a learning curve involved. And giving ourselves, again, that acceptance, right? Acceptance that there's a learning curve, but recognizing you will have the ability to notice if something is really alive. Like, people, you're not going to miss it. I hear that all the time in a lot of the private work I do, in the classes, you know, even in a lot of emails that come through for me. It's like this fear that if you don't have it perfect, you're going to miss it. And it's like, this is us just saying to you, you will know. You have the ability to notice if something is alive, if it's aligned and fulfilling, even if the fear and the emotions are overwhelming. Because you've all had it many times in your life when the emotions were not overwhelming, where you could just simply listen. Really simple things. It's 9:00 on a Friday night. Someone says, let's go to the corner store and get slushies. And you know, it's like, yeah, like it's really alive. Like, yeah. Or it's like, nah, there's no energy. There's no aliveness. There's no more life over that way. Nah, it's so clear, right? Or like, we should go see a movie this afternoon. It's like, or maybe should we just stay home? Do you guys want to finish this puzzle? You know, that's a place where it's not heightened, then it's simple-ish, just to listen. But also, like, you listen to 100 episodes of Humans Decoded too, so so you kind of practicing how to listen in your body, you know, grounding in a little bit. So I'm saying it's simple, and that's not to be confused with easy. So you have had that experience, and it was simple, and all of us decoders who are 100 episodes in have. There's a capacity for you to clear the mental noise and the emotional noise, and just have a listen for what's alive and what feels like more life, more joy. But one has to have that experience, and then we start to know if the sensation we're having in the moment, the yuck, is just a mental loop or a strong emotional loop, or is it the actual true information? You know, so you've got to have a little practice knowing what alive feels like. And then down the line, it gets more nuanced. And that's where the orange comes in, like Cam's lovely story. Like, it's alive and it's aligned. There's a juiciness. This is how we know it's alive. It's also an exhale. There's some sweetness around it that feels like joy. So these are physical sensations in the body, so we know it's alive. It doesn't feel like a push. It doesn't feel like something we are graspy to make happen, and we've been grasping for it. So is the fact that it's so far beyond what I know, the risk that turns it into a fear. And that fear is just a little orange riding on top. You know, I think of this like the first time I was creating the playbook of risk and orange. It was about going on a roller coaster for me. I was like, I need to build a repeatable pattern for risk. Like as a teacher, I want there to be a formula for risk. And so there was a really, really scary roller coaster. And I was practicing listening if it was like alive and fulfilling and more life to ride the roller coaster. And the fear that was making my knees wobbly and feeling like, no, and had a kind of had a yuck vibe. Was that just the fear of just that I'm scared? Or was it that it wasn't for me? And people, like, that took me 2 days. Like 2 days, including riding my bike to the roller coaster a number of times in those 2 days. And then doing other things like getting an ice cream that's totally a green. Like this is how this evolved for me. And I created the risk ladder that we teach in the long form that Cam was talking about. And of course, there's a lot of stuff to it. But I just want to place that knowing where something is alive, we have that experience if you just lean in. And then once that learning curve has been made, there's some beautiful nuances that happen. P.S. Riding the roller coaster was totally my yes. And
all right.
And ultimately culminated in one day where I rode that roller coaster 8 times in a row. Again and again and again and again and again and again and again. 8 times.
Oh my God. This takes me back to the day at the boardwalk in Santa Cruz when we rode that roller coaster. You remember, Kiran? Like 20.
I do, because that was that roller coaster. And that day we rode it like 3 or 4 times in a row.
And it was definitely an orange for me. So, and it was one of the most beautiful days ever. I remember we had churros and yummy, yummy, yummy.
Funnel cake. And yeah, exactly. We bought one of everything and each of us took a bite. It was such a pure joy day. And it included, I think 3 or 4 in a row rides on that roller coaster.
And, you know, another orange for me, another like ick, but I stayed in, and then it turned out to be such fulfillment, was when that chapter of living in Zurich organically came to an end. And it came to an end with life presenting this option of a house in the very south of Switzerland, where they speak Italian. And it was just so far beyond what I knew. It never really crossed my mind to go live there, you know, even though I knew the area from the yoga retreats I've been running for a couple of years. But when this house truly showed up underfoot, there was a little yum feeling in my body. It was quiet, curious. So I remember I was like, okay, I'm gonna go look at the house, but I'm not really gonna take it because I don't know the language, and how could I possibly move there? I'm from Zurich. I live in Zurich. I saw the house and I was like, no, I don't like the floors. So there was still a lot of ick going on. Like, no, this isn't for me. This isn't for me. Too unknown, too foreign, basically too free. But I met with my neighbors and, you know, I instantly felt these are my people. I had an immediate sense of family with them. And walking around in the village felt like walking around in a quiet joy and peace. And the silence around there felt loud and thick after years and years in the city. And oh my God, the green, like such balm for my eyes. And that was a very clear desire. I wanted to look out and to see trees. I remember that. And it all buzzed with this aliveness. And I remember the sensation of standing in the living room and looking out into the woods, into the hills. It's such a clear exhale, such a clear delicious in my body. And there were still a lot of pretty challenging things to navigate back in Zurich, like how to get out of my old apartment, and it was all intertwined with my ex partner, blah, blah, blah. But it was so clear that life is moving me and the cat south. And as I'm talking about this, I'm also aware of how Leela, the bubbled off fantasy life trans, could hear this and find proof for itself in what I'm saying. And even before, Kiran, when you said you got the ick about a person as a trauma response, I feel like it's very easy for a pain body, for a piece of baggage, so to speak, to hear what we're saying and take it to justify a situation. For instance, when you're in a relationship and there's an ick or yuck or lots of clunks, and pain body says, okay, so this is just my trauma response. I have to stay in because clearly I don't have all the information. And the end result is going to be great. But that's definitely not what we're saying. And I feel like there's so much nuance to this and so much discernment that it's not easy. Maybe we can unfold this piece even a little bit more, because we all know, I know for sure, it's so easy to lie myself or confuse myself a little bit and be like, okay, so this is the ick pointing to an orange and it's not the full information. So yeah, let's just hang out a little longer. However, when I'm really honest and really look directly at what is from awareness, it's very clear what's what. And I guess what I'm saying is there needs to be this little hair width of space, just a hair width of willingness to sort of really turn around and look at what's happening from just awareness.
I love that so much, Leela. We're banging out that honesty piece, like self-honesty. And only you know when you're lying to yourself. It's not like someone can easily catch you out, but you can easily catch yourself out. So if we really look honestly at the opportunity of the situation that's creating the ick, it's going to be there. The information's going to be there for us. Because as we're saying, like, the ick and the yuck is not enough information. It can be a trauma response, but it also might be the information. Mm-hmm. So one needs to be committed to getting enough space from the mental and emotional roles. You don't need a totally quiet mind and totally quiet emotions. I like what you said, Leela, about a hair width. We're talking about that. We're saying you need just a little less obsession with your emotions, just a little less grip to your mental storylines, your thoughts, and just a little more available to look, and life will meet you more than halfway. Life is going to show you the information. So if you're not getting the information, then are you really willing to listen? And I think about those 2 days of like listening for just like the roller coaster, riding my bike, and riding my bike again, and then sitting there and looking at it and getting an ice cream and sitting on a bench with an ice cream, feeling where that green was versus that roller coaster. It probably took that long because I don't know if I was being truly honest. Like, it might have taken half of that to be truly honest with myself, mm-hmm. to be less obsessed with the fear, like a little less obsessed with my emotions. I hate to say it, guys, but we might as well rip the bandage off. Be honest. You'll know. It could take you 2 days to get honest. Could take you a week to get honest. I don't know. But as soon as you're honest and actually looking, life's going to meet you.
What an invitation. I'm like, a little bit hot. Where am I not being honest? back in the day when I was splitting up with my ex-husband, there was a period where we were still living together and I didn't know where I was going to live next. And there was a lot of trauma responses. Like, I'd never lived on my own before. I was pretty much in a codependent relationship. I didn't really feel like I was able to resource myself. I was sort of, I guess, coming from this narrative and conditioning that I needed a husband to maintain me and that I wasn't capable of sustaining myself financially. And like on and on and on, tons of these stories that weren't even true in the moment because I was actually working and could sustain myself. But these were the fear loops that were running non-stop. And I remember Kiran coming in with that specific sentence, "Life will meet you more than halfway, just go to the bus stop." Like, if the image was you're sitting at a bus stop, life will come along and get you. So it's like, if all you can do is have a toe in awareness, that's enough for life to give you another couple of inches and then another couple of inches. It feels like that's how I got through that period. It felt like, I don't know how I'm going to survive this, but it was just like inch by inch, just having the willingness, having the awareness, that little smidgen more dedication to truth and to the mental and emotional loops. And eventually all the pieces fell into place, not from a push or effort, but just unfolding. So I think the thing is, we don't like being in an unknown place. When you're at that crossroads, you'll be met with fear trying to play for itself in two different camps. One will sound like, "That's too scary, we're not going there." And the other might be like, "You do love it. Just stay in, just a little bit more effort. Just hold on." So how do you discern which is true? If only there was a formula, which in a way there is. The formula is awareness. You have to come back to your body. You have to come back to the moment. You have to have, like Leela said, just that little hair width of space. Or like Kiran said, be that little bit less interested in the mental loops. And when you break the momentum of the fear and the thoughts and the catastrophe scenarios, then that's when you can just step back enough to have the discernment and actually, look with that honesty, look from the eyes of awareness.
And I don't think there's enough said, or we couldn't even say it enough, that when you let life lead an opportunity, we're talking about such fulfillment. That's not like human grade fulfillment.
No.
It's fulfillment, right? That's hitting at this magic level, that hits at miracle level, right? That hits at, I never in a million years could have written this storyline for myself. The signature that life is leading an opportunity is something we're talking at length here, because there's this discernment. You've got to hang out with all the uncomfortable. How can you read things? But the win is so enormous.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So, if you get the ick or the yuck, don't run. Don't run. Also, don't indulge it. Don't go tell everybody about the ick you had on the date last night, or the ick you had at that restaurant you ate at, or the ick of what your husband or your partner or your kid or whatever did. Like, don't indulge it, right? Because there's something interesting there. There's some information. And, if you're tempted to make that pro-con list, that's a mental loop. If you're crawling out of your skin, right, that's an overwhelmed, potentially traumatic response. So that's a moment to pause. Pause. We don't love pause as humans, right? Because pause, like, we either want to just change the channel, like we want to hide, we want to hit the button, run, or we want to gear down, gas the pedal, push ourselves forward. But pause, right? in, conscious, the motor's running. There's an honesty. There's a willingness, right? Breathing, just breathing in your body, letting life meet you. Just like the beautiful analogy that I use of like, just sit at the bus stop, people. Just sit at the bus stop because life's going to pull up and let you get on, you know, like it will, you know, and this is very real. Like this is me yesterday. The pause was a lifesaver from an absolute, you know, I had a morning of like 17 life-altering triggers. Like hit. And the first moment of like breath, all I wanted to do was just like hysterical meltdown. And to actually pause. It saved my life. And life was there. Life was right there, holding me up. But you got to practice. You got to practice to get there.
Oh, but I love that invitation for all of us at the end here to pause, to breathe, to be like, okay, I see. There's something going on. And just let life pull up under you. A warm invitation. It's such a loving invitation. It's a good one, I'd say.
So thanks for hanging out with us, you guys. Please leave a review. We would be so grateful. If you decide to go on any roller coasters, also let us know.
You know, you guys, we have a great practice sheet in our 9-day challenge. That's right. If you go to kirantrace.com, it's right there. We sometimes call it the Delicious Yes Challenge. Anyways, it's a free program. It's super great cheat sheet. And it's linked below.
Thank you so much for listening. Talk to you next week.
Love you.
Love you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening. We obviously love hearing what you think. Your feedback helps us make a better show for you to listen to. So feel free to comment, and you can do it at Facebook, which is the Humans Decoded podcast. And if you're not on social, you can always email any questions to us at outreach@kirantrace.com. And thanks for listening. We love you.